we're live.
Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everybody to this City of Salem URA Finance Committee for February 13th at 2:30 p.m. I'm Chair Jose Gonzalez, and if the other members would like to introduce themselves, please.
Mickey Varney, Councilor Ward 8.
Linda Nishioka, Councilor Ward 2.
Deanna Gwen, Councilor Ward 4.
Thank you. And usually we sometimes let the staff also introduce themselves, so that's what we could do next. If you want to start with you, City Manager Staley.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. Keith Staley, City Manager, and I will hand it off to Josh.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer, and I'll hand it to Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Mattercheck, Chief Accountant for the city. I'll pass it to Anya.
Anya, Treasury Supervisor, and I'll pass it off to Kelly.
Kelly Blake-Schmidt, Management Analyst in the Budget Office. I will give it to Dan Atchison, Esquire.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney.
Sounds good. Go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
Sorry, just real quick. We also have Shannon Thomas, Admin Analyst, and then Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself also?
Sure. Ryan Pascarella. I work for Grove, Miller & Swank, CPA firm here in Salem. We're the independent auditors for the city.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sounds great. Well, thank you very much. And so it says approval of the minutes on the agenda. Which meeting minutes are we trying to approve, Josh?
That would have been from your meeting just a couple weeks ago on February 3rd, I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, February 3rd. Hey, does anybody have any questions, or if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from the February 3rd meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. And there's no other comments or questions. All those in favor? Aye. Or
Aye.
Thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like none, so agenda approved. Minutes approved. Anybody signed up for public comment?
No, not today.
Move on to number 4, any action items?
No, not today, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Josh. So number 5, we're going to receive management update in a presentation. I think in this case, Ryan, our guest Ryan.
Yeah, that's correct. And just real quick, I'll turn it over to Jenny Mattercheck, our Chief Accountant, and I just want to thank the General Ledger staff for their work these past several months to get the audit complete. A lot of years ago is a little bit unnoticed, but it is a lot of work for them and for our auditors. So I just want to thank everyone for their efforts. But Jenny, do you want to introduce the subject?
Thank you, Josh. Yes, so I'll echo what Josh said about being very grateful. We have great staff here at the city, and it was a difficult year. We had a new GASB accounting standard come out for leases. Definitely some lessons learned from that experience and the potential for software in the future to help create more of an automated process from a manual process. But we're very thankful for the support of our auditors who helped us get through this issuance, which is a big lift. So I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thank you, Jenny. Like I said, my name is Ryan Pascarella. We audited the financial statements. It's called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the year ending June 30, 2022. So I just wanted to talk about that process a little bit, of a few of the items that we noted, and to just kind of give you an update of other work that we're doing related to this audit that's still pending at this particular point. So the city's required to be audited by an independent auditor that holds an Oregon municipal license on an annual basis. The requirement is for the audit to be completed and submitted to the Secretary of State's Audits Division within 6 months of the end of the fiscal year, which would be December 31st. And there is some room for extensions in there. This year, the audit was submitted on January 31st, if I'm not mistaken. The city asked for a 1 month extension related to kind of what Jenny was talking about there a little bit. There was quite a bit of new information that needed to be added into the financial statements for 22. And so it just took a while to get all of that put together and recorded properly in there. So the city of Salem is one of many that asked for some additional time this year to get that all figured out. So I don't have any concerns about asking for that extension. The city historically has not asked for it, and I know the Audits Division was happy to do it. So everything was submitted timely to the Audits Division. That's really all I'm trying to say there, even though it was past that original 6 month window that was there. Along with this, the city also submits the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. They submit that to an independent grader, which is the government officers. There we go. The Government Finance Officers Association. It isn't required to submit it to the GFOA, but the city historically has. By doing this, you're supposed to include more information in your financial statements than what the state requires. So you're going to see a lot more statistical trend analysis and just some other documentation. That was also submitted on January 31st for grading again this year. And when you look at the ACFR within there, you see last year's certificate of achievement, which really means that this meets the accounting, the reporting requirements necessary in order to get this certificate. It's quite a bit more work than just a normal financial statement, but it's definitely a much more useful tool when you have some of this additional information in there. So that is historically been in there as well. I will go ahead and share my screen. It looks like I do have that ability to, so always helpful at that point. So if you're curious what that certificate looks like, here is last year's certificate. It just says 21. So it was received, and you did receive it for last year in there. I wanted to show you in this giant document, page 21. So this here is my report, which is about 3 pages long. I have, I think, 5 pages in total in this document that my firm created. The city creates the remainder of the information in there, and I audit the information in there. So this is my independent auditor's report that I've signed here. And basically what it says is that the financial statements are, I'm giving reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. You will see that when it talks about auditors' responsibilities on page 2. It actually talks about that. I do not give absolute assurance over every number that is in these financial statements. You don't want me to do that. If I did that, I would be on site the entire year, and it would be a very expensive thing for the city to do. So the auditing standards basically say we give reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. Why is that? We do quite a bit of sampling. We are not, like I said, not look at every transaction. We're going to look at more risky transactions. We're going to look at large transactions, which inherently have a little bit more risk to them. And then we'll take a random selection of things. So I can 100% guarantee you not every number in that financial statement is correct, but they are materially accurate. That's what we are attempting to do here. I have new auditing standards that came into play for fiscal year 22. So there's a couple of things I wanted to point out in this independent auditor's report that are going to be different from prior years. And some people, when they've read it, it's like, what are they talking about? Why is this in here? This wasn't in here before. So I think it's important to kind of point out a few of these items so you just understand this is the change in the auditing standards and what we need to be reporting in here versus there was an issue with the city of Salem this last year, so we put things in. It's not that. It's the standards. Everybody gets some of this new information in here. So one that I'd like to point out here, it talks about the city's ability to continue as an organization. This has never been in your independent auditor's report, but it is something that as auditors, we've looked at from year to year. I mean, if your organization, is dependent on one specific funding and that funding is going away, you might not be around in a year. City definitely doesn't have that issue, but it is still something that we take into account every year, just in case it would ever come up, which I can't really say that would be. I can think, let's see. Oh, let's just go back to a long time ago when city of Detroit was, having problems with their pension and ended up declaring bankruptcy and some of that stuff in there. That's when this would kind of come into play. But for city of Salem, not going to happen. It talks about just our different responsibilities and such in here as well. One other thing, I guess this is going to be in the governance letter. It also has us identifies what we see are the risky areas of the organization and then communicate that back to you. One of the most significant ones that we look at every year is management's override of controls. Not specific to the city, but that is yet again something that every auditor on every audit, that is something we are required to perform procedures over. You can have the absolute best internal controls written up in your procedures. You can have, 99% of all transactions go through that same thing. What we're trying to look for is if somebody like within finance has the ability to just ignore everything that is written down for your procedures and add things into your financial records that would not be appropriate. Like I said, that's something that we always have to look at. We look at journal entries that are in there. Like I said, we do random samplings. Nothing came to our attention that made us feel that way, but it is something that is being communicated now to the governing bodies, essentially, just so you're aware of that. So this is my report. If you were to look at the opinion that was on here, there we go, opinions. This is now front and center in the report. Last year it was kind of buried, so they had us reorder all of this information. If you read this, it basically says we're giving a clean opinion, also known as an unmodified opinion, which means that we are comfortable giving the reasonable assurance that the financial statements are accurate. There are other things, other types of opinions we could give, modified opinions, things like that, which means there's something negative happening. You're getting the clean opinion, which is the highest that you can get. There's nothing in these financial statements that we feel is materially inaccurate at this point. Thank you for the delay in getting this meeting done. I know that it was scheduled for the 3rd, that I was going to be here on the 3rd. I asked for a little bit more time. Jenny and Josh were very nice to let me kind of work through it. We were kind of down to the wire getting this done on January 31st. And I just wanted to go breathe and then take a look, just make sure I feel that things were being treated correctly in there. So the whole rescheduling and having me be here, it's all me. It really was. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything before I presented this to you. The only other thing in the financial statements that I wanted to point out to you, let's see, down here. So part of what we do in the financial audit is we look at Oregon. We do some testing based on Oregon revised statutes, and we do some reporting related to it. So in the entire ACFR, the last 2 pages are going to be the actual state report that says that there were a couple of minor violations related to things. So you can see that in there. But I just wanted to point out, it doesn't get into detail in my letter. So I just wanted to point out that a couple of things related to some budget violations of some very small amounts. And then a deficit fund balance that is in there as well. So These were reported. We did not deem them to be significant in any way. So we didn't report them as a true finding to the state, but it was a minor violation. So they are listed on my reports, but there's nothing the city needs to do related to it. So this is kind of buried on page 116 of the document. So I felt like it was important to at least point it out to you so that you are aware that these things are in here. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Hey, I like that.
Member
one.
Nishioka? Yeah.
Need to unmute myself. Yes, Ryan, thank you very much. Does Josh have this report, or do we have access to this report? Because I really want to read all 245 pages.
In your agenda packet, it has a link. You can also just go to the finance page under financial reports, and it's available there also.
Thank you.
You also have a physical copy in your inbox.
Oh,
All the counselors do.
did that come today?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
before lunch, yes.
All right.
And that will give you some wonderful reading material. If you want to take a nap or anything, it is absolutely a great way to do it. I will say there is a lot of information in these financial statements, as you can tell, just from the sheer number of pages in there. I tell counselors, really pay attention to the front two letters that are in the financial statements. One being the transmittal letter, which basically just is a brief understanding of what's happening within the city, not necessarily from a financial number standpoint, just things happening within the city. And then right after that transmittal letter is something called the management discussion and analysis. It's a narrative that talks about what changed in 2022 versus 2021, new fundings that happened, just a much more comfortable read than staring at a bunch of spreadsheets like us accountants do and really enjoy doing for whatever reason. So definitely the narrative is a good component to it. Yeah. You also have, I think part of this, it also talks about the Urban Renewal Agency. That audit was done right along with the audit of the city itself. So you should have that in your packet as well. Really anything I'm saying related to the city relates to the URA in the same way. As far as the clean opinion, what's changed with the audit report, it's just uniform across the board. And so you have that. And actually the Urban Renewal Agency is inside the city's financial statements as well. It just has a separate reporting requirement. So we have a separate financial statement that's prepared related to that. And I didn't prepare that either. That was your finance department that did that as well. So there you go. Two things left. One, as part of this audit every year. Yes.
Real quick, it looks like Councilor Nishioka might have a question.
Oh.
Well, I have a question, but I think I'm going to direct it to Mickey because we had a question on that urban renewal. It was where we were trying to understand Mickey, do you remember the unmodified or modified? You were the one that talked about it. So I don't know if this would be the right time to ask.
Oh, I since Ryan did point it out during his presentation, he described what an unmodified opinion was. And so I wasn't going to ask him, but if you need some more information, that's what it was. Because when I read through the report, I went, what's an unmodified opinion? What was the previous one that hasn't been modified? So anyway, answered my question. Thank you.
That was it. Thank you.
And I'll say when I first started doing this, I basically asked that same question. What's modified versus unmodified? And I did not come up with that terminology. Don't blame me for it. I just get it communicated. That's why you hear clean opinion out of me instead. It makes it a little simpler to understand. So a byproduct or one other report that we need to do related as one other audit relates to your spending of your federal grants that you receive. And this is something that happens pretty much annually. All you need to do is in 1 year spend more than $750,000 of federal money, and this single audit is what it's called, kicks in. And so we prepare a separate financial or compliance report related to it, where we take, depending on what the funding stream is, which federal agency it's from, which grant it's from, we select 2 or 3 different programs to look at on an annual basis and make sure you're spending the money correctly. Make sure if there's reporting that you need to be doing back to the state or to the feds related to it, that's being done correctly, that you have good documentation for it, that you have good processes in place to develop that documentation, all kinds of stuff. We don't decide what to do. The federal government tells us exactly what to do for each one of those programs. So that is really the one item related to the fiscal year 22 audit that is not completed yet. We needed to get the ACFR done first, then we could start working on the federal compliance work. So that is in process at this point. It is due March 31st. It does give, we do have extra time to do that one. So it's in our queue of about 2 or 3 other exactly similar projects we're doing for other clients around the area. So we're just kind of working through that at this point. So you will see a federal compliance report from us once we finish all the compliance work that we need to do related to it. And as part of that, I'm required to provide to you a governance letter, which basically outlines everything that was significant during the audit process. Normally, I would be presenting that in this meeting, but I want to hold off on actually issuing that letter until we finish the federal compliance work, just in case something needs to be added into it. I didn't want to have to issue 2 letters or anything like that. So that governance letter is on hold for the moment until we finish the other work that we are doing there. So, and so chances are you might see me again if that's kind of what's decided, and I'll talk briefly about the federal compliance report. What would be said in the governance letter? It talks about if there's any disagreements with management. No disagreements there. If you wanted to say, were there any difficulties this year? No, not really. Closest thing is we were down to the wire, and that was, I think Jenny, Jeremy, and I had some real fun working through getting that lease stuff all done at the last minute in there. But really, the audit went well. It really did. I really appreciate the people stepping up and working through it as they did. Very responsive with questions. My team absolutely appreciates that one, because then we don't have to wait for 2 weeks to get a response and remember why we even asked that question. So those responses are very helpful to us. So overall, we're very happy with how the audit went for this year. We just want to get it wrapped up and get that federal compliance thing done in there. So that's what I have for a presentation. I don't know if there's any other questions that people have.
No, thank you, Ryan. I guess if there are no other questions, just wanted to thank you for your time. It's great. You represent a very reputable company in town. I don't think any of us can fully grasp what it is, our finance department, and what you all do. So put a lot of faith and trust. And so if there's no other questions, Josh, anything further on Ryan's report?
No, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan, for your time, and check in often.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks. Let's see. So anything, well, I'm just going to go right 6 and 7. Any continued or new business, Josh?
No, not today, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, if there's aren't any other questions or comments, it'll be adjourned. 3, 2, 1. All right. Take care, everybody. Meeting adjourned.